Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
Well, hello there. Thank you very much for joining the Industrial Talk Podcast. This platform is dedicated to you, the industrial professionals, the companies that get it done because you innovate. You imagine a better world. You're bold. You're brave. You dare greatly. You're changing the world. That's what this podcast is all about. It's about you and your company. So thank you very much for joining. This is also sponsored by those incredible folks at Stratum Consulting Partners. Go out to stratumcp.com because they're providing carefully crafted EAM solutions to power continuous improvement. That's what Stratum is all about. Go out to stratumcp.com. Find out more. We have a great interview. Again, with Michael Snyder. He's a rock star with Stratum. Let's get going. All right, this is a continuation in our series that we had been performing and putting out there on last mile configuration, right? And if you remember, if you go back, the first one was on front-end configuration for EAM solutions, the back-end configuration for one-off corporate rules and requirements. The last one that we did was quick and easy integrations to save time. And now this one is going to be a picture is worth 1,000 words. And you can only imagine what that means. That means you're bringing your assets in, you're giving it an actual image, and you're going to be able to drill down on that. And Michael brings the truth bombs with this EAM insights and all of the good stuff that's associated with Michael. So you don't want to hear me yammer on and on. Here's Michael Snyder. He is with Stratum Consulting. Enjoy the interview. All right, Michael, welcome back to the Industrial Talk Podcast. So glad that you are here. For you listeners out here, this is a continuation of our series, Last Mile Configuration. And we're going to be talking about, note, you listeners out there, a picture's worth 1,000 words. I like that. Talk to us a little bit about what you mean by that there, Michael, and welcome.
Sure. Great to be back, Scott. Last time one of the last podcasts, we were talking about last mile configurations. And one of my absolute favorites is actually taking advantage of pictures. EAM has the ability for you to store pictures within the database, and you can associate to any element within the system. So you can associate with people, with assets, with parts, with work orders. Wherever you have a picture that can show you what's going on in the system. And what Stratum has done is we've actually taken those pictures and moved them front and center. And by you doing some of those last mile configurations using the extensibility framework, which is JavaScript, we can actually show those on the list view of the screen. We can show them on the record view of the screen. We can show them in a number of different places to be able to make them useful for the end user.
For the end user, for the listeners here, why is this important?
Oh, if you want to find a part in the store, just having the code name or the barcode doesn't always do it. If you can actually see a picture of what that part is, that's going to allow the guy who's picking those parts to be able to get them a lot quicker. So you're going to save some time and money there. When you're working in the field doing maintenance on a particular asset, and you can see the parts that are associated with it on the screen with that asset, it makes it a lot easier to identify which part I need to be ordering when something is broken.
That's important because I've been a part of situations where I didn't get the right part because the part was inaccurate. Do you have examples of what that looks like?
Sure, I can show you right now on the screen.
Fantastic.
So,
okay, you listeners out there, we're on the video, and he's going to show us an example of the platform and the assets. So if you're out there on video, look at it. It's pretty cool. So continue.
I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So here we see a van that's a specific asset. But right here on this asset screen, we've got the assets, right here front and center. So we don't have to worry about which one we're talking about. So rather than having to read van, I can look at the van and say, well, that's the one I want to look at. If I double click on that van, I go to the record view and I can actually look at that screen. And if I want to zoom in, I can click it, and there I get a bigger image. I can make that. Oops. Yeah,
there it is.
Make that image bigger if I want to be able to do that. or I can minimize it. The other thing that I can do is when I actually go to the parts associated with this van, I can see a image of those parts. So here's the of one of the turn signal bulbs. Here's the motor. Here's the test thing. Again, I can click on that, get a zoom in image, and I can actually see what that bulb looks like and zoom around on it. I can also do the same thing for the motor. And be able to look and see what's going on. So just like you're using in some of your other applications like Amazon or Best Buy or whatever, it lets you actually zoom in and look at that part or that thing that you're buying. Why shouldn't you be able to do that in EAM when you're working with your assets and your parts?
Now, I would imagine that there's a necessity. I mean, from my perspective, this is the holy grail. Meaning, if I'm very visually oriented, to be able to see assets that are, but this is sort of the hierarchy too. So you have the van, and then you just drill down in all the assets associated with that.
Exactly, and I can do that for any of my assets within my system, and I could do that whatever industry I happen to be in. So if I'm in parks and recreation, I can get a picture of my playground. And then I can zoom in and see a picture of the slide that goes on there, or the teeter-totter, or whatever pieces associated with it. If I happen to be working for a shipping company, I can actually zoom in and see the engine or the propeller or other parts that may be associated with going on there. So if I'm in pharmaceuticals, I can get an image of the components that I'm working to be able to produce those pharmaceuticals.
Using
so the image. Yes.
Using the van analogy, and you'd say, okay, here's the van, here's the top of that asset registry, and here are the components associated with it. But in that van, you might have a bench seat, whatever. I don't know.
Sure.
But then there are components associated with that bench seat. Can you even create sort of sub hierarchies of that particular asset in this particular
exactly within an asset, you've got the components that make it up, and each one of those components you can define as an asset, and then you can look at the parts that are associated with that asset, or look at the sub assets that are associated with that. Hierarchy can be as deep or as rich as you need to be, and you can associate it in a number of different ways. So you can associate the asset to multiple systems if you need to be able to do that.
I would imagine this really, the ability to be able to purchase and become far more accurate, this platform lends itself to that.
Oh, without a doubt. It's great for being able to use images to be able to deal with different aspects of assets. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was ADA, which is the American with Disabilities Act. When I was working for the park system, we had to do ADA compliance. We had to go through and inspect all of our different parks to make sure that it was accessible for all of our citizens, especially the playgrounds and the ball courts and things like that, just so that they can come and sit on a bench and watch, be able to get to the place, or actually be able to use some of that equipment. So if you make a change to an asset that's ADA compliant, the Department of Justice requires that you get an image beforehand and afterwards, so that you can compare and make sure that you haven't changed the ability of that asset to be used. So the height of the teeter-totter has to be certain height so that somebody can actually easily get onto it. If you change the height so it's higher than they're able to access, then that becomes a problem, and that asset no longer is compliant.
Do you, because of ADA, do you have to submit I did some work on this ADA compliant asset, and here's the after picture of my work. It still is in compliance. Does the DOJ require that you submit that?
No, but if they decide to come in and do an audit, they want to make sure that you are actually tracking all of your assets to make sure that they continue to be compliant. So they could come in and say, okay, show us the pictures. before and after. And also, if you're dealing with a lawsuit or some other challenge, it's nice to be able to have those pictures to say, yep, it was, we kept this thing compliant. There must be some other issue that's going on.
Let me, because I've been a part of a number of implementations, and one of the challenges, data cleanliness, information that is clean and accurate. How does Stratum ensure that going forward with these pictures are accurate when, let's say, somebody changes out a motor in a van? Here.
So, the way an asset is set up can be changed. So Infor has built into it a capability called a profile. So we can set up a profile that says, okay, if this is a Ford van, these are the parts that are associated to it, and these are the pictures, the default pictures that should go with a Ford van. If all of a sudden you swap out that van for a Chevy van, now you're going to have a different set of parts, you're going to have a different set of pictures that are associated with it, and you can just swap it out pretty quickly. And by being able to do that, you're keeping your data up to date. And we have clients that use the profile capability. We have a lot of clients that are starting to put pictures so that they have the picture of all their parts, of all their assets, and can take full advantage of this great end user capability.
See, what's fascinating to me is that outside of the fact that you have the ability to be able to do that, companies, specifically industrial companies, they can create a tremendous amount of assets in their registry, and the ability to be able to keep that current, keep that accurate, is vital. But it's so important. It's not just important from the fact that you can purchase more effectively, but I think there's a safety component. Do you agree?
Oh, without a doubt. If you are not, maintaining your assets up to the requirement that you have for keeping it operational.
I'm sorry. If you're out on the video, we have a special guest. I would imagine that's your wife that just sort of walked into this interview.
That is my wife. She didn't realize that we were taping. So
I love podcasting. Hi, welcome.
She's not going to say a word.
Oh, come on. Yeah. So, but from a safety perspective, this is real important stuff. Oh, don't worry about it. Say hello. It's all good.
When we started taping this podcast, I popped in there to ask her, when she was going to be done, and
clearly
she's
done now.
We got started. Yeah, she's done. So she's not going to interrupt us at all.
We've validated the fact that she's done. There she goes. Unless she's got a Bluetooth thing going on in her ear and she's still talking.
No. She doesn't even know how to escape the room. Oh,
no, I love it. There you go. Run. Right, I'll make sure that I point it out. There she goes. No. Anyway, that's real important as we start talking about it, because you want accurate information specifically about your assets. So if I'm a maintenance guy, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to bring my toolbox and whatever it might be, and I know exactly what I'm getting. My work order reflects the accurate picture, and so on.
Right. Yeah. When you're actually going to work on a pump or work on another piece of equipment, if you know which one it is and you have a picture and you can see it in the context of where it is, you know that you're going to be working on the right one. And then so having that picture just increases productivity tremendously and allows you to be able to make sure that you are working on the right piece of equipment.
Yeah. And you know as well as I do, when they kit stuff up, when they're doing a project and they kit it up, and they, how many times has that kit been developed incorrectly?
Right. You can lay the parts out. You can look at the pictures and say, I either got the wrong kit, or a couple of these parts are definitely not the right parts. So when I try and get that thing in where it's supposed to go and it doesn't fit, I've done a pre-check to make sure everything is right.
I love it.
So it's great. And then when you need to reorder that part because it is broken, you've got a nice picture of it. You can associate it with your purchase order and make sure that your vendor is giving you the part back that you actually expected.
Absolutely love it. I'm going to catch you off guard here, so hang tight here. What are we going to be talking on the next, last mile configuration? What are we going to be talking about next time?
Oh, I think we're going to talk about asset configurations.
I love it.
Actually, how we can maintain our assets a lot better, how we can build that asset registry that tells us what the status of that asset is, how long its life is, what the cost of it is over a lifetime, when it's time to replace it, and how we can associate with other assets within our organization.
I love it.
That would be a great one.
I think you're spot on. All right, you listeners out there, that's what we're going to be talking about. Establishing an accurate or a strategy around asset registry and configuration associated with your organization, your operations, whatever it might be. So, listeners, hang tight. Michael, thank you very much. I look forward to our next conversation.
Yep.
And we're going to wrap it up on the other side because I think we're going to have some stuff that you need just to be aware of. So thank you very much. Stay tuned. We'll wrap it up on the other side.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
And again, thank you very much for joining the Industrial Talk Podcast. So glad that you were here and listening to Michael Snyder. He definitely has some street cred when it comes to the enterprise asset management system by Infor. He knows exactly how to get you up and running. He understands how to remove the pain. And his other series, don't miss out because he is dropping some really serious insights into the InforEAM product. And if you want to reach out to him because he's got a mad stat card out there, just go out to Michael Snyder. And you can type in Stratum Consulting, and there he is right there. Boom. Michael Snyder. Reach out. He'd be happy to chat with you. All right. Again, go out to industrialtalk.com. Everything that you want to know about this particular interview and other interviews that we've done in the past, it is all out on industrialtalk.com. We also, if you're interested in doing podcasts, considering bringing that in, and I have a series called Why You Need to Podcast. You need to bring in the sales. You need to bring in a new portfolio of marketing solutions out there. Yeah, podcasting is the way to go. So again, thank you very much again for joining the Industrial Talk Podcast. Be bold, be brave, dare greatly. That's what we're all about. Innovation, baby. You guys are bringing it to the market. Thank you very much. Be safe, and we will talk later.